Welcome back to the Zanpakuto Creation Series. Today's Zanpakuto Creation Series topic comes to us from KCM Veris, who asks, what is Sasori of the Red Sand Zanpakuto? Now, I will be looking at this from the eyes of the human version of Sasori. I do this because it will play a factor into talking more about his Zanpakuto overall, but I feel like it would make more sense to do it in this form, and you'll see why a little later. But Sasori, obviously, is the puppet master of the Akatsuki, known as Sasori, the Scorpion of the Red Sand. He was immensely skilled puppeteer who could even turn other people into puppets, including like the third Kazekage and himself. So, what does the Zanpakuto for this guy look like? Well, I do think it's just a standard katana, first and foremost. 90% of Soul Reaper's Zanpakutos tend to be standard katanas when they're sealed. Around 90, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. The type of Zanpakuto it is, though, is very much a Kido type. I do see this guy as a Kido user. He's very intellectual, very, I wouldn't say malicious, but he is very cold, calculating, very intelligent, and that lends all to a Kido type. Now, its release would be, or at least in my opinion, would be pull. Now, why pull? Well, that lends itself to the name of the Zanpakuto, which is marionette. It is just, Shikai just translates into one word, marionette. The Bankai would be the eternal marionette, which, again, using Google Translate, so I know this is not going to be the actual name of this thing, is marionetto. So, pull, marionetto. Its Bankai, though, is, oh God, let's see if I can remember how to pronounce this right. I always should look before I do this video on how to pronounce these things. Elen no Ayatusuri Ningyo. Elen Atusuri no Yingo, or the Eternal Marionette. Now, what the spirit of the Zanpakuto would look like is pretty much a puppet version of Sasori. Now, the reason I say is because, A, he values puppets like the eternal beauty and artistic mastery of them. Art is eternal, all that. But so much to the point where he turned himself into a puppet. This might be how he truly sees himself. And so his spirit would just look like a puppet version of himself. Like what he truly aspires to be, but at least in a Bleach context, would never ultimately be. Because I don't know if you could do that, if you could do what he did to himself in the Naruto world in the Bleach universe. I don't know, I guess it's in theory possible. We got Mod Souls, and you got Mayuri doing all kinds of crazy shit. So I don't know, maybe. I guess in theory it's possible. But what does the Shikai and Zanpakuto turn into in its Shikai form? I don't have an image for it, but what I honestly see is just a glove. I actually see this as, to be fair, like a steel-plated glove, meaning that if he had to, he could actually use it for like some brawling, block a blade if he had the strength for it. But specifically a glove that is releasing reishi strings, in Naruto terms it'd be chakra strings, from his fingertips, or from his fingers, either the tips or from the tip of the glove. I mean, I feel like I like the idea of it being like fingerless gloves. But fingerless to the point where maybe it's only covering like your second knuckle. So maybe the strings are coming off of there, or it's releasing reishi. Either way, the Zanpakuto would basically produce reishi strings that basically take random objects and can make puppets out of them. Now, there'd be a serious limitation here with the fact that the Shikai only gives you a string for each finger. So while you could make you could take objects from all over the area and make it into puppets, you can still only use so many puppets based on how many strings you have. The ideal number probably is 2, using 2 puppets with strings, with 2 puppets with both hands, I should say. Because you also have to factor in that it's basically taking objects, and while it is molding them to some degree, it can't just say, one string can't take, say, a rock and turn it into like a marionette puppet, and you control that puppet. You can't do that. You could take maybe, if you were to go Mr. Spock, take 3 of your fingers, do that, and maybe form a rudimentary puppet with 3 fingers and 3 strings. But the ideal would be probably be 5 fingers, for each hand, obviously. 4 fingers and a thumb. Create 2 puppets. Now, obviously, I keep saying obviously, but clearly you could go into just using both hands and make one very large effective puppet from your surroundings. But the idea for, especially if you're going against multiple opponents, would be maybe using 2 puppets at once. Again, this would be taking any sort of thing from the environment, including, rock, stone, steel, metal, anything that's around that has physical form that you can make into a puppet. So that would be the Shikai. The Bankai, I liken more to his final, the Dance of 100 Puppets, where he essentially, had 100 strings, roughly speaking. And I like the idea that basically the gloves kind of like maybe grow over his body, and he basically now has 100 strings coming off him. What I think he would be doing a lot in this Bankai would be basically forming Hiroko, his main puppet that he was using as his front body, the body everyone saw in the real world. Basically, I like the idea that that's his go-to form he takes, taking in the surroundings, be it, earth, metal, stone, ice or whatever, and basically forming it into the puppet. That being said, he wouldn't need 100 strings for that. He could still also manipulate things beyond that. But at the same time, if you want to just make a really big version of it, you could take 100 strings and make a really big version of this and hide in the puppet. Now again, both the Shikai and the Bankai would be limited in terms of how effective they are by the durability of said puppet. They and by that I mean the durability of the substances being used for the puppet. They'd be very limited in that, and he's still limited by a certain amount of strings. So, he can only do so much with all the strings. But that being said, Sasori is a very intelligent individual, so it makes sense that he could still do a lot with very little. Ultimately, this just makes sense. There are characters whose abilities don't translate, in my opinion, to what their Zanpakuto ultimately would be. But then there's characters whose abilities clearly translate into what their Zanpakuto ability would be like. This is one of those characters where it's very obvious to me where the Zanpakuto translates to. Anyway, so that is my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you later.